Today's education news, there has been a last-ditch call for a delay on Ofsted's consultation into their new reforms, which aren't actual reforms, by the way, it's just more of the same. There has been an open letter sent to the Education Secretary, which has been signed by Julia Waters, Ruth Perry's sister, who I had the pleasure of interviewing for a podcast. If you've not listened to it, please do go and listen. This letter, which I have read and I think is absolutely spot on, has been signed by so many school leaders, ex-inspectors, union leaders, alongside Julia. I wish I was asked to sign. I'd have signed on a dotted line. Basically saying that they want to delay this rollout of these proposals because they argue Ofsted has demonstrated its failure to address lessons from Ruth Perry's death. And despite Ofsted constantly trying to change the narrative, let's just remind ourselves that a coroner found Ofsted to have contributed to her suicide in 2023. The coroner found parts of the inspection were conducted in a manner which lacked fairness, respect and sensitivity, and at times it was rude and intimidating. Now, despite Ofsted having its own internal investigation and making promise after promise about learning from the mistakes made, even though the head of Ofsted then turned around and said the lead inspector did nothing wrong during that inspection, it is felt that what Ofsted are proposing, they're not learning from those mistakes. Those who have signed today's letter say these proposals will make inspections even less reliable and will continue to drive excessive pressure, ill health and stress on the profession. Yes, Ofsted have said they'd get rid of the toxic one-word gradings, which they never wanted to do, by the way. It was only because the EdSec said they needed to. But other than that, there's been little meaningful attempt at resolving ongoing systemic issues that have been proven to cause catastrophic harm to education staff. They believe the new proposed system will continue to have a detrimental impact on the well-being of education staff and hence on student schools' experience. But like I've always said, Ofsted don't care about that, do they? They don't care about staff. They don't care about students. They only care about one thing and one thing only, and that's Ofsted, and justifying Ofsted's existence as being something important and relevant. They've described the 12-week consultation as rushed, urging Bridget Phillipson, the EdSec, to delay these proposals to take the time needed to get the change right. Because here's the thing, it's not a case that we don't want schools to be accountable. We know we have to be accountable with the job we do. It's just been proven with Ofsted's proposals that they cannot reform themselves. Now, what has been very clear to me during this 12-week consultation period is that Ofsted seem quite desperate to try and just grab on with their very sharp claws anything that sort of paints them in a good light. You know, this big listen PR exercise, which they sort of cherry-picked little bits and bobs to sort of show them in a good light, again, to try and justify their own existence. During this time, there has been an alternative consultation where 2/3 think Ofsted reforms are actually worse. The alternative big consultation, ABC, which was carried out by former senior HMIs, found that only 1 in 10 felt Ofsted's proposals would be an improvement on the current inspection framework. 90% felt its proposed 5-point grading colour scheme was either largely unfit or unfit for purpose. Might be looking at this going, yeah, but it's a survey of only 700 people. How much of a reflection is that? Ofsted are doing a similar thing. They put out last month, during the consultation period, which they shouldn't really be doing, a YouGov poll of more than 1,000 parents, finding that 67% preferred the new report cards to current Ofsted reports. On Twitter, all the Ofsted spokespeople were saying how great was that 2/3 of parents say they prefer these new inspections. 86% said it's easy to understand. But when you actually look into this, which I will do, courtesy of the Secret School Business Manager, which is showing in this thread of tweets a lesson in how to manufacture a consent. The number of parents surveyed was just 1,090. There are 8.2 million pupils in English schools, which shows that this is just a 0.007% of the parent population. Of those 1,090, this is what Ofsted don't want you to see. This is what they weren't also sharing. 49% had only heard a little or knew nothing about Ofsted. Now, you can imagine for Ofsted, who are so self-indulgent and only bothered about themselves, that must have really grated on them. Only 1 in 4 had never read an Ofsted report. Yet we're supposed to believe this same group can confidently endorse a fundamental overhaul of the inspection framework. The way they went about doing this survey, where they were first shown the new report card and then only asked which they preferred, of course, people will lean towards the one they were primed to like. That's classic survey bias. Worse still, parents weren't asked the real question first and fully. Do you think schools should even be graded on a single word judgment at all? That conversation about the human impact, about teacher and student well-being, completely absent. Which goes back to the point of this open letter sent to the Education Secretary, proving that Ofsted has demonstrated its failure to address the lessons from Ruth Perry's death. We will wait with bated breath to look at what Ofsted do off the back of their own consultation. It'll be more of the same. They'll sort of cherry pick bits that make them sound good, and then anyone who's actually working in the system they'll just completely ignore that. A DfE spokesperson said Ofsted reform plays a central role in our work to drive high and rising school standards, which isn't the best start really, because if you genuinely think Ofsted raise standards in schools, you've not got a clue. Ofsted don't raise standards, they never have, they never will. All Ofsted do is they sort of check standard, which is absolutely fine, I've not got a problem with, as long as you do that fairly and they are held to account. The system this government inherited meant high stakes for teachers but low information for parents. That's why we're determined to make an inspection a more powerful, more transparent tool for driving school improvement, removing the single word judgment and introducing these report cards. Both Ofsted and the department's consultations have provided an important opportunity for everyone to have their say, including on the impact of inspections on workload and wellbeing. Both organisations will carefully consider all responses before finalising the approach. Now, if I was working in the DfE and I was looking at how can I build trust with teachers, how can we, work together, the people who have signed this open letter, they're the ones that they should be listening to and working with. And in this open letter, they've said they want to design a school inspection system that will meet the DfE's principles for an improved accountability system without driving more talented educators out the profession. These are the sort of people the DfE need to be working with and listening to, not the regulation body whose sole focus is justifying their own existence and clearly never seeing themselves in the wrong and not learning from the mistakes they've previously made.